Hi there, Mark Jabin here, Medical Director for the Haywood County Health Department. And let's talk about this pandemic. In this video, two events, similar settings, one thing in common, and different results. Both right here in Western North Carolina. So please share this with someone you care about. So I want to share with you what transpired recently at two houses of worship. Now, this is not a story about religious liberty or First Amendment rights, because each gathered together as they chose to do. But it is a story about spiritual health, emotional health, and physical health. Economic health too, as it turns out. And a story we can learn from as each of us attempts to best balance health and safety. So Congregation A gathered together. Everyone greeted each other, just at a distance. Not what they wanted, but what they decided together to do. Family members who lived in the same house sat together in the sanctuary, but otherwise people kept their distance. Everyone wore a face covering, and they prayed together, but chose not to have singing. Not what they wanted, but what they decided together to do. Congregation B also gathered together. They greeted with hugs, they sat shoulder to shoulder, they sang and prayed side by side. Very few wore a face covering. It's what they decided together to do. Now, what these two congregations had in common? Well, someone in attendance at each got sick within the next 2 days and tested positive for SARS-CoV-2. There had been someone in their midst, pre-symptomatic, infected, contagious, but with no symptoms. No way for that person to have any idea that they were a risk to others. In that second congregation, Congregation B, 100 others are now infected. In isolation, many more in quarantine, schools and livelihood disrupted, and for some who had to be hospitalized, lives at risk too. In-person gathering now suspended for at least the next month, unable to gather together for the very spiritual and emotional support they all desired. Not what they wanted, but what they got. Congregation A, no one else was affected. No others had to go into isolation, none had to quarantine. In-person services could continue, and they were able to gather together again for the very spiritual and emotional support they can provide each other. Because being together, even if different from what they wanted, was more important than not being together at all. You know, health encompasses physical, emotional, spiritual, economic, and political health. Safety encompasses how best to go forward when these clash with each other. Focus on one at the expense of others, and you can see the unintended consequences and the counterproductive results. So be well and be careful, especially right now.